Vande Devam Umapatim Suragurum Vande Jagat Karanam Vande Pannagabhushanam Mrigadharam Vande Pashunam Patim Vande Surya Shashanka Vanhi Nayanam Vande Mukunda Priyam Vande Bhakta Janashrayam Cha Varadam Vande Shivam Shankaram Vande Bhakta Janashrayam Cha Varadam Vande Shivam Shankaram. Om Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nijantargatam Pashyannatmani Mayaya Bahirivod Bhutayatha Nidraya Yasakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanamevadvayam Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam Sri-daksinamurti-Srotram Deham pranamapindriyanyapichalam Buddhim chashunyam viduhu Stri balanda jadopamastvahamiti bhranta vrisham vadinaha Maya shakti vilasa kalpita maha vyamoha samharine Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam Sri-daksinamurti-Srotram Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam Sri-daksinamurti. In verses 1 through 4, we have seen the great vision of oneness being unfolded part by part, portion by portion. Vision of oneness meaning all that is here is Sat Chit Ananda, Satchidananda, whom we address also as Shiva. Unto that truth of the universe, the Satchidananda, Shiva, my Guru, my Namaskara. This has been the theme of verses 1 through 4. Verses from 5 onwards, 5, 6 and 7 addresses the different perspectives, the different matams, the different thought systems regarding the truth of the universe. And so, in verse number 5, we saw different contentions of Atma with reference to truth. Different contentions starting from the materialist, the Charvaka. We moved on to seeing how this materialist believes that only what is visible alone exists. What is the truth? Truth of the world is that which is Satyam. That which exists is called truth, Satyam. What is the truth? The truth is only that which meets the eye alone is. And what does not meet the eye does not exist. This is the materialist philosophy. And so in that we saw those who believe Deha Eva Atma, the truth is all that is here is of the level of the physical body, which means the physical universe alone is. There is no punyam, there is no papam, there is no dharmam, there is no swarga, there is no naraka, there is no heaven, hell, merit, demerit, nothing. Why? Who knows? Have you seen merit and demerit? Have you seen heaven and hell? No. Then what are you blabbering? This is the philosophy, one philosophy of the materialism. And with that we moved on to see others who say prana eva atma, prana, the physiological functions alone is atma, and that was negated. Sense organs alone is everything. Whatever you perceive through the senses alone is true. And that when you don't perceive through senses is not true. And this kind of, therefore, indulge in the senses, because life journey should be engaging with the senses all the time. This is another model of materialistic philosophy. Why? Because you are so committed to keeping the senses stimulated all the time. Sometimes you stimulate the tongue, and then the whole physiological system is so tired of catering to the tongue. Then for some time you switch over to the skin, and then after you get tired of the skin, you come back to the tongue, and both you get fed up, go to the ears and nose. And so the whole pursuit of life is what? Stimulating the nose, the ears, the tongue, the taste, the touch. And what is this is but materialistic philosophy of materialism. And similarly we saw Deham pranam apindriyanya pichalam buddhim. Then there is a sophisticated materialist. What does he say? He says truth is where there is knowledge. And therefore this buddhi, which is chala, which is changing mind alone is, this is the final. Mind is changing. So he defines it as changing. And these philosophers are called Kshanika Vijnanavadin. Kshanika Vijnanavadim, Kshanika means flickering. They say the consciousness is flickering. And when you have a series of flickers, you get a semblance of continuity. Like the old, movies we used to watch with the reel being played, and what is a reel? It's all images, picture images, and then in a certain flow, it gives you the semblance of continuity. And so there is actually no such thing as one consciousness which ever is. No, it is flickering consciousness is another model, another philosophy, and this comes under, where it comes to our Vedantic study, we call these philosophers as Bauddha. It's one line of Buddhism. Kshanika Vijnana Vada is not accepted in Advaita Vedantic understanding, metaphysics. And there is, so that he said, and Adi Shankaracharya says, Bhrantaha Bhrisham Vadinaha. They vehemently argue like this, but really speaking, they are all wrong. They are either coming from half-baked thinking or no thinking. Please turn off your audios. Please kindly be alert. your audio is being off. Everyone, Anuradha, Kalpana. Okay, anybody else? Please, yeah, wonderful. Keep your audios off. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, good. So here, all these philosophers, we are looking at Kshanika Vijnanavadin, so who talks about the buddhi as being flickering consciousness, and Shankaracharya, the Advaita Vedantin seer, he says they are all talking half-baked. Why? Because for you to know that you are a flicker, you have to exist in and through all the flickers, no? You can say, I was flicker A, flicker B, flicker C, flicker D. How do you know you are all these flickers? Because you were there in and through the flickers to know that you were the flicker. And therefore the flickering cannot belong to consciousness. It belongs to the thought system, the vritti. The thoughts flicker, consciousness does not flicker. And people who say so, they have not really, their thinking is partial thinking. Their thinking is either partial or blinded or immature. And he gives examples, Tri Balan Dajadopamas Maha Upamaha tu Ahamiti. They talk about Aham in this manner, the truth in this manner. And what then is the truth? Well, he says there are some who say Shunyam. Atma is Shunya. Shunya means what? Zero. That there is no such thing called truth. There is truth is what? Satyam is what? They say Satyam is zero. Zero means what? Means nothingness. Nothingness is Satyam. And other than nothingness, everything that you see as is subject to coming and going. It is agantuka. Anything that you see as existent, has anything that you have seen as existent really exists? We only said when you see something as existent, it is either born or it is on its way to be gone. Because it is seen, it is conditional, conditioned by time and space and objectivity. And therefore, being born in time, it is gone in time. Therefore, everything seen is mithya. Everything that appears to exist is mithya. Then what is satyam? Nothingness. Shunyam is satyam, is another philosophy, another branch. And Advaita Vedanta comes in and says, this guy has now moved from Annamaya Kosha, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya. He has covered all of them. Shankaracharya dismissed all of them. Finally, he comes to the last kosha called Anandamaya Kosha, where he says, Shunyam, Aham, Shunyam, I am zero. Did you know your self-introduction is, who are you na? These guys say, I am zero. If tomorrow somebody asks you, hey, who are you? Introduce yourself. I am zero. Who are you? I am also zero. Is that your essential nature? Zero? Shunyam? So, Adi Shankara, these Shunyavadis, they are called Shunyavadis, and they say that the original nature of Atma is Shunyam, zero. How do you know? How do you know? Because they give their arguments based on sleep experience. In sleep, what do you experience? They say. Do you experience any world of objects? No. If you do, then it's not sleep, it is dream. You don't experience any objects. Therefore, that is called sleep. Do you experience any subject? In sleep, do you experience any subject, anything at all? No subject, no object. When there is no subject, no object, what is there? Shunyam. When there is no subject, no object, think about it. What is there is Shunyam. Who says this? Shunyavadis say this. Those who say the world, the foundation of the world is in nothingness. Therefore, nothingness is Satyam and the world of existence is Mithya. This is exactly opposite of the Veda. And so, verse number 6 addresses this Shunyavadi. And look, very beautiful, he says, Rahu grasta divakarendu sadrisho. Rahu grasta divakarendu sadrisho. Maya samachhadanat. Maya samachhadanat. Sanmatra karanopasamharanato. Sanmatra karanopasamharanato. Yo bhut sushuptav puman. Yo bhut sushuptav puman. Pragaswapsamiti prabodha samaye. Pragaswapsamiti prabodha samaye. Yaf pratyabhignayate. Yaf pratyabhignayate. Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam. Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam. Sri-daksinamurti-Srotram. Sri-daksinamurti-Srotram. Rahu grasta divakarendu sadrisho maya samachhadanat. Sanmatra karanopasamharanato. Yo bhut sushuptav puman. Pragaswapsamiti prabodha samaye. Yaf pratyabhignayate. Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam. Sri-daksinamurti. This is the answer. The answer to this Shunyavadi. Who is the Shunyavadi? He is called Prathama Malla. In our tradition, we have a Nyaya, a model of working. It's called Prathama Malla Nyaya. Prathama Malla Nyaya is that when you are dealing with an opponent, you don't deal with every opponent. You let these smaller rounds of competition take care of itself and itself and itself, and finally the smartest of them all will come up, right? And claim the medal. And then you say, hey, I am the champion, you come here. Deal with me. This is called Prathama Malla, Nyaya. So Adi Shankara deals with the Shunyavadi, the last guy who based his argument on sleep, saying There is no subject, there is no object, all that is there is nothingness, and this nothingness is Satyam. And for that he brings up his argument. And so here is a very important verse, a very beautiful verse and a very deep verse. There is a lot that is to be understood here. So number one, we need to know, he declares it is not that there is nothingness. Atma is. When something is existent and you don't experience it, it could be two reasons, right? When you don't experience something, anything, there could be two reasons. Number one, either it does not exist. Number two, it exists but it is covered. It exists but it is covered, veiled, it is covered. And so here he says, Atma is. And it is not experienced because of this cover. What cover? Rahu grasta deva karendu sadrisho. Sadrishaha. This cover is like the eclipse. The eclipse of the sun, eclipse of the moon, So we have this eclipse, even though the sun exists, but it is not experienced. Why? Because of the eclipse. You don't say, when there is eclipse, you don't say the sun has disappeared, do you? You know very well the sun is, but is not experienced. Its heat is not experienced. When the moon is eclipsed, you know it is, but you don't experience it because of the cover that has been brought about. So who brought that about? Rahu grasta Divakara. Divakara is the sun. Indu is the moon. How the sun and the moon are grasta. Grasta means they are caught by this planet and they are covered. So he says, similarly what? The Atma is covered. How? Maya samachhadanat. The Atma is, it exists, but it is covered. How do you say it is? Sanmatra. Only the existence is, but its experience is covered, is wielded. How do you know that this is true? How do you say that? Okay, you say Atma is covered. What about the world? The world should have been seen, no? We have two things, subject and object. You are saying subject is, but it is covered. Okay, temporarily I allow you to say that. But what about the world? Why don't we experience the world? Well, we don't experience the world because karana upasamharataha. Because all the sense organs have been withdrawn. Is it not? If the sense organs came out of their homes, it would be called waking state. When the sense organs come out back into the Golaka, sense organ is subtle. And these are stations, This is one station, this is another station, this is a third station. Station means what? It is their workstation. You go to your office, right? This is a workstation. So these sense organs have gone into resolved state. When they return to work, that contact from the workstation they make with the world of objects, that state is called waking state. And so, when karana upasamharataha, when the sense organs are withdrawn and they are resolved, they are withdrawn into the mind, and the mind, antakarana, is resolved into an unmanifest state, that puman, that state is called sushuptaha. Yaha sushuptaha puman abhut. That state is called deep sleep. And therefore, how can you experience the world of objects without sense organs? So you don't experience objects because the sense organs are withdrawn. You don't experience the subject because it is covered. And that is the reason why both subject-object experience is not there. So, this particular statement, to understand this statement, we need to little bit do some foundation work, okay? This is, Shunyavadi has one way of looking, Advaita Vedantin has another way of looking. Which way is the right way? Can both be right? Both can be right if both are perspectives. But we say we are not a perspective, we are the metaphysics. We are the truth because we speak from the revelations. You are presenting a perspective, and so how is this what you say true? So for this we need to understand how does the mind function. The functioning of the mind and what is returning to waking state. The process of moving from one state to the next state is a very beautiful little analysis given here. And Adi Shankara, let me just start this up. One thing we need to know, that when the mind functions and the antakarana functions, we perceive objects, we gain knowledge, we perceive and we gain based on the range of your sense organs. The dog's perception and gain of his knowledge of the world is based on his sense perceptions, which is far bigger frequency of sounds and sight, light and sound. Frequency perception is far greater. We saw this earlier. So we have our own sense organs which help the mind perceive certain objects and gain knowledge about it. Here we need to understand one thing. We have what we call a perception which is conscious perception, and a perception which is registered unconsciously. The mind always, there is a conscious perception, and there is also perceptions which are registered unconsciously by us. But consciously we always identify one perception. One perception. So for example, you are listening to me, right? So what have you perceived consciously? Oh, Ammaji's face is perceived, my hands. Consciously you are watching. But there is a unconscious objects also being registered. Like what? Like the curtain behind me. Are you consciously registering the curtain behind me? Are you consciously registering the lamp, the flowers? No. You better not. If you're listening to me and not looking here and there, then consciously you are aware of one perception, and unconsciously you are registering other things which are existent in this, in my space. Am I right? So we say then, there is one conscious perception. There are other things that are in the room which is registered unconsciously. And the third point to note is Swamiji also sitting here? If your friend did not attend the session and they asked you, did Swamiji also come there? Now you were not consciously registering that Swamiji is not here. But unconsciously you have registered absence of objects also. Please make a note, consciously there is one perception. Unconsciously you are registering existence of other objects around me, behind me, and unconsciously you are also registering absence of things around me. So this absence of things is called abhava. Abhava vritti. Technically, vritti means a thought. Abhava vritti means the thought of absence. The thought of presence, the thought of absence, both these thoughts are registered unconsciously. Okay? Are you all with me so far? Okay. Now let us come to sleep. This is our conscious world. Wonderful. Now in deep sleep, what happens? In deep sleep, what happens is, I am there. Adi Shankara said, Sanmatra, I am there. But I am not there enough to register consciously my presence. You understand? I am there, but my own presence is registered, what? Unconsciously it is registered. Not only it is registered, another thing registered is there is no sound, there is no form. So the abhava vritti, there is something called the cognition of absence. That there is absence of sound, that there is absence of form, that there is absence of smell, of taste, of touch. The absence, thought of absence, called abhava vritti. This thought, what thought? Absence. This absence of everything is also registered unconsciously. My presence is registered unconsciously. The absence of all names and forms, absence of names and forms is also registered unconsciously. And this unconscious, the registration of absence called abhava vritti is called sleep. The absence of the five sense perceptions and its objects is called abhava vritti, the thought of absence. The thought that there is absence is called abhava vritti. It is also called ajnana vritti, ignorance. It is also called nidra vritti, sleep. It is also called sleep. And here the absence thought and the I thought, the I am, and the abhava This abhava happens where? That absence happens where? Not in a active mind. If the mind was active, other thoughts will be there. So the mind is resolved. The mind is resolved. The antakarana is resolved. These two thoughts is registered in the resolved mind. These two things, what? I and the absence is registered in the resolved mind. This resolved mind is called Karana Sharira. The resolved mind is called the causal body. Now you understand what is causal body. Causal body is the resolved mind in which two things exist. What? The unregistered I. What is unregistered I? It's not an illegal I, okay? It's like unregistered property. Nothing like that. Not consciously recognized I. Unconsciously recognized I and unconsciously recognized absence. These two things exist in the resolved mind. And that space, that state is called Karana Sharira in our Advaita Vedanta. And therefore, it is also called Hridayam, Hridaya Guhayam, These are different expressions. It's called the spiritual heart. In the spiritual heart is Atma. When we say, we are referring to this heart, this resolved state called what? Karana Sharira. And so, during sleep, I am purely Karana Sharira exists. During dream, Karana Sharira plus Sukshma Sharira. In waking state, Karana Sharira, Sukshma Sharira and Sthula Sharira. So you get three different states of experience. In deep sleep, it's purely Karana Sharira. In dream, it's Karana Sharira and Sukshma. Sukshma means subtle body. Causal body plus subtle body. In deep sleep, it is causal body alone. In dream state, it is causal body and subtle body. In waking state, it is causal body, subtle body, gross body, Sthula Sharira. These are the human being's three states of experience. And so here, what happens? He says, what happens is this. Here one more technical word I need to say, because Adi Shankara has used this statement, Praga swapsamiti prabodha samaye yaf pratyabhrignayate. And so, prag aswapsam. Aswapsam means this man, prabodha samaye, in waking up, when he wakes up, prabodha samaye, what does he say? I slept well. Prag aswapsam. I slept well, he says. What is this I slept well? What is I slept well? It is called pratyabhignya, another technical expression. Pratyabhignya, yaf pratyabhignyayate. This pratyabhignya means recollection. It is a recollection. What is a recollection? Pratyabhignya. Recollection is different from memory. Okay. So we have, therefore, hitch here we need to cross. Number one, when you see something for the first time, suppose you see a person for the first time, this is called a cognition or knowledge, So you see a person for the first time, you're introduced, we call this jnanam or cognition. Now, when you see the person for the second time, what happens? If you're talking about this person to somebody else, recalling, pure recall, mental recall, that is called memory. That is called memory. But when he is in front of you and you say, what? Hey, we have met before. Soyam, you are that same person, aren't you? You were so fat before, what happened to you? Soyam, that person you are. This particular function of the mind is called recollection. What is the difference between a cognition, a recollection, and a memory? A cognition is experienced by you right here. A memory is kept in a mental bank and recalled. Where there is memory, there is no perception, cognition. Where there is cognition, there is no memory. And therefore, what is pratyabhijna? Pratyabhijna is, there is pratyaksha, there is cognition plus memory. That means you're not purely dependent on memory, the person is also right now here. So when you're here and you were there in the memory bank, you say, you are that person, I remember. This is called pratyabhijna or recollection. Adi Shankaracharya here uses a word pratyabhijnayate. Prabodha samaye, in waking state, what happens? Now look, in the waking state, when you say, I slept well, what is that state? Is it pratyaksha? I slept well, is it cognition? I slept well, is it memory? Or I slept well is cognition plus memory. It is cognition plus memory. Why? Because I was there, I am here, I am experiencing I now. I did not experience myself then. Why? Because there was a wailing. I slept well. I didn't know anything. We say no. I didn't know anything. I slept well. So I existed, but I was veiled, covered. Like the sun is covered, but it exists. I, the consciousness, Sanmatra, as existence, it existed. But it was covered by what? By this veil of I didn't know anything. That's the veil, the ignorance veil. So this particular sentence, I slept well, in that I, there is a pratyabhijna. The I that was there is the I which is here. That's why you can recall, recollect. And what is this slept well? There seems to be a memory. There is a smriti, there is some memory in that resolved mind which you are recalling. Now, you cannot recall a memory unless you were there. You were there and you are here. There is a knowledge that I was and I am. I slept well. If some friend says, I know you didn't sleep well. How do you know? I know. I know. I slept, I know. You're so confident because you were there. There was no nothingness there. Sanmatra, you existed in the form of existence. If you ask, but why am I not conscious? Well, consciously, I is not registered. I is registered unconsciously. Why? Because of the veiling of this I know nothing. That nothingness is a veil which sits in existence called I. And therefore, there are two things happening in sleep. It is not that it is nothingness, but that I slept well and I didn't know anything is the experience of you who existed there. And therefore, Adi Shankara says here, during the waking state, yaha prabodha samaye, during the waking state, he recalls. Pratyabhignayate, he recollects. Who can recollect? Only if you are there, you can talk about then and now. You have to be here now and you have to be then there. If both are there, only recollection is possible. And therefore, this Atma, I was there in sleep. I recognize myself in waking and I remember myself in sleep. Both being there, there is no such thing called absolute nothingness. Shunyavada is dismissed. This is a proof of my existence. Pratyabhignya is the key. It is a proof that I was and I am. And therefore, to say that nothingness is the foundation of the universe is completely dismissed. And unto that Lord, who is in the form of Sat, who was then and who is now, unto that Sat, who is Shiva, who is my Guru, Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaha Idam Dakshina Murtaye. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.